Now, this is kind of a big one. Never criticize. Hear all these codependent rescuing mothers. The husbands are hitting them in the ribs. I hear all over the room. Okay. Never criticize. Now, that's a big deal to say never criticize. Because I want you to think of one word. There's a synonym that I use with the word criticize. And I want you to think of it. Every time you criticize, you reject. You're rejecting that person. And that's what they feel, is a rejection. Criticism never, ever changes behavior on a permanent basis. People don't change like that. They don't change because you criticize. Now, I want to prove to you that criticism doesn't work. And I will offer this proof. Ladies, if criticism worked, your husbands would be perfect by now. Because they would have corrected everything. Criticism says, I like you conditionally, but you're really not okay. Now let me talk to you how powerful this is. John Lund said in his book that nobody can live in a constant atmosphere of criticism without it having devastating effect on their personality. Every time you say, honey, that's the wrong one, or you dress them fast because you're too lazy or too impatient to let them do it themselves. And everything you're saying to this child, okay, and you're presenting to this child, the child is learning who they are by how you mirror back your opinion. A child determines who they are and gets an opinion of who they are in life and their value by seeing their reflection in your eyes and how you treat them. If it's done gently and kindly or critically or whatever. And I'm going to tell you, criticism is poison. It will poison any relationship, marital or parental child. It will poison the relationship. So I would like to suggest to you there are other ways to influence, and criticism is not one of them. Your children think that you love them or don't love them to a certain degree. If I was to ask them, hey, do your parents love you? They'd probably say, sure, my parents love me. My parents are great parents. Well, do your parents think very much of you? Do they approve of what you do? I'd start getting some different answers, wouldn't I? Now, treasuring is different. Like I said, my dad loved me, but I didn't feel like I was his treasure. Your children know you love them, but do they feel like that you treasure them? That you almost hold them in awe? This miracle that's happened in your life, and these children came along? We become so familiar with them that we begin to discount the value, especially when they start to cause trouble. So we need to reevaluate this and look at this and understand that your children know or feel whether you treasure them or esteem them or care for them or you're just tolerating them. Now, how many of you, honest to goodness, are really just tolerating your teenagers? Because, boy, you get so frustrated, I like to shoot them sometimes. I've been at my wit's end where I don't know what's going on anymore with those kids. They drive you absolutely bananas. So that the purpose of this is to show if you have 100% acceptance of your child, how much are you rejecting? Nothing. You have unconditional acceptance. 100% acceptance. But if I drop down to 90% acceptance, how much rejection does that kid feel? Do they start to feel something's wrong here? Do they? The point I'm trying to make is that whatever you're not accepting, you're rejecting. Remember what we said in the normal family? There's 25 negatives for every single positive stroke. And we're going to talk about strokes. Strokes are a unit of recognition. And strokes can be positive or negative. But we're talking about a stroke here as good and a stroke here as negative. In the average house here, for every one good attaboy you've got 25 you dummies. Or hurry up, or you're slow, or can't, how many times I have to tell you this? Something negative. Positives to negatives. Now, the problem with this is, there's a terrible distortion here. If it was 90% acceptance and the kids felt 90% accepted and only 10% rejected, I guess they could live with that. But what if you focus on the 10% rejection? What do they think you see? Have you ever had kids say, you never say anything good. You never see anything good I do. Do you ever have kids say that? Because all we do is we focus on the negative here. We focus on the rejection. And when we focus on the rejection, 25-1, they think that's all we see. And when they're little especially, they're much more influenced, much more damaged. Because they really truly believe there's something wrong with them. Because these gods, these huge giants in their life are saying this is wrong and that's wrong. And they come up with an I'm not okay message. I'm not okay. Because all they hear from their parents is the negative stuff. And they hear it over and they hear it over, and they hear it over and over. Now, what they tell us is, for every negative, what we really need, for every negative, to counteract one negative, you need 10 positives. Can you see how far out of proportion we are? One guy told me that the father told the young girl, "You're not pretty, but you are smart." What do you think of that? Do you know how devastating a comment is like that? You're not pretty, but you're smart. What will that girl hear? What will just sink down into here? This guy told me that wasn't a stroke, that was a tattoo. That went deep and that scarred forever. Do you think I could come across and give her 10 good ones and eliminate that bad one? I want to tell you there's going to be a lot of work done there. There can be terrible traumatic damage done to the ego and the person's self-image when this kind of stuff is going on. The point of this is that criticism is the same as rejection. And when I'm criticizing my kid, I don't say, "I'm criticizing you now," but I say, "Will you please hurry up?" Or, "That looks good, but it wasn't done quick enough." I'm giving and taking away. And whenever I criticize, I'm rejecting that child. And as I said, it can be addiction. When I've worked with people and told them to stop criticizing, they've got their negative antenna out, and they're always trying to criticize, looking for something wrong. They're always nitpicking. They would make great quality control supervisors or quality control experts at the factory on the space launch or something, but they're terrible for raising kids. And they feel, as to do their job as a parent, that they need to be criticizing that kid and pointing out what's wrong with that kid. And in the average home, as we said, there's one good stroke for 25 bad strokes. And the child perceives, since we concentrate on what's wrong, that they're not acceptable and they're not okay. And that's a sad message to get across to the child. They literally believe that they're not okay. Kids need strokes. They have a stroke bank. They can have a stroke deficit. A stroke is recognition. A stroke is you're okay or you're not okay. It can be positive or negative. And all this criticism, all this rejection is destroying the child's self-image and their confidence. And when you say that's not right, or this isn't good, or that's not right, we're criticizing most of the time. Now be honest with me. If your kid comes home with 7 A's and 1 C, what are you going to see? My little boy, you'll see the A's, My little boy wanted to play baseball. And I was living through my little son here. I never had a good coach. And I pitched, but I realized that I didn't have a good coach, and I didn't get the help I wanted. So he decided he wanted to play ball, and he wanted to pitch. We made a mound in the backyard. We took him down to San Diego and had videotapes taken. This is an 11-year-old kid, people. We went down there and had tapes made of him, so make sure his arm wouldn't hurt. And I coached him through that season. And he made the All-Star game, We practiced all during the winter. And the very first game, in Little League, there's only 6 innings where they play. There's 6 innings. That's 18 outs, right? He struck out 15 out of 18 batters that first game. He was really good. We practiced all year. See, I'm upset. See, baseball isn't fun. Baseball is war when you're tweaked. Okay? And you've got to win. And you're going to do it. You've got to do this. And you've got to do your best. He says, "Daddy, I just want to have fun." I said, "Shut up, man. Baseball isn't fun. It's work." Man, I had him playing for the Yankees. I mean, this kid was really good. He could do things with that ball. It was really great. He listened and he did good. The second year, he didn't want to pitch. Guess why? He just wanted to have fun. But I was on his case. And guess what we talked about on the way home then? 15 out of 18 strikeouts. We talked about the 3 he didn't get and why he didn't get it. Can you imagine this kid saying, "Dad, get real. Give me a break." And what am I into? I'm perfectionistic. And some of you came with perfectionistic messages from your parents, and you don't feel okay unless you're perfect. And you got these drivers in you. Try hard. Please me. Be perfect. You heard those? Have you? Hurry up. Oh boy, I got them all. Now, can you see the trouble with focusing on the negative here? Can you see the problem? Don't you really accept your kids 99%? If you accept them 99%, then you need to understand that the child has a stroke deficit. And they're going to get strokes. They need strokes. Just like your body needs food, that little spirit, that little mind, that little person in there needs strokes. They need recognition. And if you don't give them lots of good strokes, they're going to get strokes some other way. And parents have told me, well, why should I thank the kid for making his own bed? Why should I thank the kid for doing this and picking up his own clothes? That kid needs those strokes. That kid needs that validation. We need to reinforce the behavior that we want to keep going. Does that make sense? And what's so bad about strokes? If you don't have strokes, send me $10. I'll give you 1,000,000 strokes. I'll give you a certificate for 1,000,000 strokes. They're free. And you can make as many strokes as you want. And you should give those kids strokes after strokes after stroke after stroke. And just fill them up, fill their bank full of strokes. That's what makes their energy. That's what makes their self-image. And tell them, we love you. You're a beautiful little girl. We love you. The point is very simple. Is we know our kids are 98% okay. We love them. They're valuable. But 90% of our conversations with them, 90% of the strokes are negative. Because they're not getting the dishes done on time, or they're not doing this, or they're not doing that. And because we are so perfectionistic, and we've been raised in these perfectionistic, unrealistic expectation homes, that we set ourselves up, and we set them up for never succeeding, and never feeling that it's okay to feel okay about yourself. Never justifying the fact that they can feel good about themselves. And that's the messages I got. And you're passing those on too.
Okay, with those accomplishments, like the touchdowns and the good grades, is it okay to say I'm proud of you instead of I love you, or that's not?
No, I wouldn't say
not
that. Now we're going to get in. There's a whole section on encouragement versus praise.
Okay.
And there's a and if the kid makes the touchdown, you say, "Oh, Daddy, look, 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 look," and I give me the touchdown and say, "Hey, this looks great. Looks like you really tried hard. How do you feel about it?" Get into their world. Not I am proud of you. You made me look good. I are the big macho papa with all the jock sons. Okay? And that's because I'm so macho myself. All right? So the point is that that's what the kid did. Well, if the kid comes back, and can't you say, I'm proud of you for all those A's? Would you say, I'm proud of you with those F's? Can you see how you feel about the child has nothing to do with those grades? And the child needs to understand that.
Okay, I understand that we're not to give negative, or, if they're not doing things, maybe I'm too perfectionistic on wanting things done or whatever, the rooms, the dishes.
Husband's going like this, yes.
But this is the point I want to make. We have a very large home and we have 5 children, and things have to be done or the
yes.
household doesn't run. So they can't just not do things either. So
Well, we have 9 more lessons.
okay, things have
You see,
to be
we're
done.
don't go home and upset everything. Just kind of watch what's going on this week. Do a few things like getting out of arguing and a few things like that, and start stroking a whole bunch. All right? You're going to find that just stroking and infusing your whole home with a very positive, loving, caring thing is going to solve a lot of problems.
So
Okay.
what we're to come to is that they want to do these things?
Well,
Is that
later.
what we're
But we
hoping
have a
for?
token economy. We'll go into all that stuff.
Okay.
How they're going to come and say, Mom, have you got some work for me to do? I need some. Hey, they do it. They do it. And that's one of the things. On the token economy and some of the behavioral stuff, you'll learn how to set that up. They need unconditional love and unconditional acceptance, warts and all. That matter if they're afraid, or they flunk in school, or they don't agree with you, or they hate the way you do things, or they don't like the scouting, or they don't like your church, they don't vote your party, or whatever's happening, that you love them unconditionally and you accept them where they are for what they are. And you get out of your head all this unrealistic expectations that your kid's supposed to be perfect, and they're supposed to feel like you do, and supposed to think like you do, and supposed to believe like you do. All of these things, those are their issues and their responsibilities in life. Because if you start to impose on them, what we get is a rejection, and they rebel against those things. If, on the other hand, you set an example and you role model, and they see how happy you are and what it means to you, they're going to accept these. They can evaluate. But there's so many people that reject everything their parents are trying to have for them because the parents are forcing it down their throats. And they throw the baby out with the bathwater. My kid dropped out of school over the control issue, not because he didn't want an education. He did these things because I told him he couldn't. That was the issue, was control. Who runs my life, you or me? It didn't have anything to do with going out with responsible kids, responsible girls. You give unconditional love and unconditional acceptance, but you do not necessarily give unconditional approval of what they do. And you're careful to separate the behavior and the person. And you can say, not you're bad, but this is bad. This is not good. This makes me upset, and I'm angry about this, and here's the consequences. Go to your room, and we're going to sell the dog. Okay? And that's it. Those are the consequences for this action. But you don't say you're bad and you're doing this and you incriminate, because that doesn't work. Can you see how you can preserve some dignity there. The fragile flower. This is the flower. This little child, innocent and lovely, opens up to you as a little innocent baby. And it says, I love you, Mommy. And as long as you say, I love you too, Sammy, you're a wonderful little boy. I'm so happy that you're with us. You bring me such happiness. You're just right. I love you. Is he going to continue to stay open, this little flower? But what happens when you take an ice pick and you go like that in the middle of that flower? Just like that. What will happen? Every time you criticize and every time you reject, that child closes and closes and backs away to protect itself. Because we don't like to be hurt. We don't ask girls out because we're afraid of rejection. We don't try things because we're afraid of failure. We're afraid of humiliation because we've been criticized and hurt. But if I try and I fail and you don't criticize me, I can stay open and I can keep trying. But if you hurt me and make me think I'm dumb or make me think I'm not okay, I close down. And every time you tell me I'm stupid, I close down. Now you can feel when these little kids are closed down. You can tell when you're criticizing because they back down and they close down. And when you go up to hug them, how do they feel when they're closed on you? When you can you notice they even feel stiff when they're trying to pull away? And that's because you're criticizing them and you're hurting them. And with all the stuff we do, they are so forgiving. They keep coming back and hugging us. And if you'll be big enough to say, I'm sorry, Daddy made a mistake. Will you forgive me, please, Sammy? Daddy was angry and he yelled. I was so upset and I got so many problems. I'm so sorry. You're such a wonderful boy. I'm so sorry. You get down on your knees and hug him. You can feel that little flower start to open again. But at this point in our lives, some of us, with our husbands and our wives, or our children that are teenagers, these teenagers have shut down. They're sick and tired of all the nagging. They're sick and tired of all the rejection and the hurtful things that are said. The assumption that you have to rescue me all that. The assumption, the insulting assumption that you have to tell me everything to do. That I'm not capable. And I'm tired and I'm closed. And I'm going to be closed as long as you keep hurting me. But if you open up and the sun shines, what's going to happen if the sun is gentle? See the flower open again? And the sun is love. So can you remember this thing? And if people are closed down from you because you've been negative and critical, would you please stop it? You can't bond. You can't have a relationship that's good and warm and intimate if these people are closed from you. Start shining that love on them so that they'll open up and they'll come to you. And then you can be together.